Let me tell you about Bubba Wallace, a race car driver in the 2311 team who has hit a rough patch. It seems like he might be losing interest in racing, especially after hearing some harsh words from Denny Hamlin, who criticized one of the most controversial drivers on the track. In this video, we'll talk about the mistake that cost Wallace and his teammate Ryan Blaney their points and whether this could end Wallace's racing career. Stick around for the next 8 minutes because we have some really interesting stuff coming up. So, during the Geico 500 race, Bubba Wallace was leading most of the time, but things went south on the final lap. He got into a wreck when Ryan Blaney of Team Penske crashed into him, and the race ended in the most disappointing way you could imagine. Before we dive deeper into this, it would be awesome if you could give our video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and turn on post notifications. Now let's talk more about Wallace's situation. So Bubba Wallace from 2311 Racing had a rough time and lost the lead, with Kyle Busch from Richard Childress Racing finishing first. Wallace tried to avoid being overtaken by Ryan Blaney from Team Penske, but he ended up spinning out and crashing during the last lap on the huge 2.66-mile track in Lincoln, Alabama. He came in 28th place. Now, when the Cup Series goes to a super speedway, lots of people think Wallace will do great, especially at Daytona International Speedway and Talladega Superspeedway, and they have good reasons to believe that. Some folks tried to downplay Wallace's win at Talladega Superspeedway in October 2021 because the race got cut short due to the rain. But the truth is, his victory is just as legit as any other win, since all racers were competing under the same circumstances. However, there's a big difference between leading a race when it's called off because of the weather and knowing you'll race to the next flag, whether it's the checkered flag or the yellow flag on the last lap. Even though Bubba Wallace usually does well in these kinds of races, he's never actually won one like this in the NASCAR Cup Series. How much does Wallace really know about racing in these high-speed tracks? In his 6 tries in the Daytona 500, he's only managed to get 15th place twice. His only other top 13 finish at Talladega Superspeedway happened during another rain-shortened race. He's never finished higher than 14th in any of the 3 races at the Superspeedway Atlanta Motor Speedway. However, when it comes to summer races at Daytona International Speedway, he's managed to score top 15 finishes every time. But in the end, those results just aren't enough. This isn't his first incident, and with how things are going, it probably won't be his last. People are starting to question his motives and wonder why he can't just race without causing problems. If you remember, he first gained attention as a driver after having a tense encounter with Kyle Larson last year. Since then, Wallace has had another run-in with Ryan Blaney, which has led some to believe that he's losing his touch as a driver and might need to retire soon. Now, I'm not the only one thinking this. Even the co-owner of Wallace's 2311 racing team, Denny Hamlin, agrees. Before jumping to conclusions and questioning my point of view, listen to what Hamlin had to say about Wallace after the Geico 500. He compared Wallace's actions in the final pit stop to how other drivers like Tony Stewart and Dale Earnhardt Jr. would have handled the situation, suggesting that Wallace didn't need to make the block he made. Jared Allen, another 2311 Racing co-owner, asked Hamlin when he thought things changed in NASCAR, to which Hamlin responded that it was probably 6 or 7 years ago when NASCAR added larger spoilers to the cars for super speedway races. According to Hamlin, this change created a big bubble effect between 2006 and 2012, when cars had less drag and less horsepower. He believes that NASCAR should go back to those designs because the current cars are so well grounded on the racetrack that drivers end up crashing into each other more often, making accidents inevitable. Hamlin doesn't want more crashes. He just thinks that the older car designs allowed skilled drivers like Dale Jr. and Tony Stewart to use their expertise in handling the lines and manipulating the competition around their air. So as you can see, Bubba Wallace's career is at a crossroads right now, and even his own team's co-owner questioning his actions. Is this the end of the road for Wallace as a race car driver? Only time will tell. Fans are interested in the drama surrounding him, and it all seems escalating. Even though Denny Hamlin, the team's co-owner, has defended Wallace after an outburst at last year's Las Vegas race, he's now expressing concerns about Bubba's future in the sport. After a disappointing race at Dakota, where a crash with Kyle Larson resulted in Wallace's 3rd DNF, did not finish, out of 6 races, Hamlin suggested that if Wallace keeps this up, he might need to be replaced or retire. Many people are wondering if Bubba still has the motivation and competitive spirit to compete at the top levels of NASCAR, one of America's most popular racing sports. Hamlin pointed out that if Wallace had kept his cool during the Geico 500, he probably would have won at Talladega. There was no reason to make that block, but Bubba went for it anyway. This isn't the first time he's been involved in drama on the track. Remember that 2022 Las Vegas Motor Speedway incident between him and Kyle Larson? Wallace was pushed into the wall by Larson and decided to take matters into his own hands by pushing Larson out of the way. This action earned him a one-race suspension, which some, like Petty, felt was just a slap on the wrist. The incident also led to the elimination of Christopher Bell, a serious contender for the Cup Series title. However, since then, many in the NASCAR community believe that Wallace has changed and now has what it takes to finish in the top 4 in the upcoming season. The Bubba Wallace we see today is more true to himself, but he might still need to improve as a race car driver. It's possible that he's lost interest in NASCAR. His comments after the disappointing race at COTA left people wondering about the future of 2311 racing, and the events at Talladega only made things more uncertain. So what's next for Bubba Wallace? Is his career in NASCAR coming to an end, or will he find a way to bounce back and regain his competitive edge? So what would Hammond have wanted Wallace to do instead? Having a clear direction to guide these sometimes confusing conversations about retirement would be great. Just because someone overtakes you doesn't mean you're out of the race. The first group of racers got all tangled up behind Blaney, creating a messy situation. It was easier to reach that conclusion since it happened below the yellow line. Bubba Wallace would try to clear Blaney's reputation from within their team. Blocking isn't a requirement. Only the starting and finishing blocks must be completed. The game isn't over if one racer breaks free to the outside. News about Wallace's retirement spread incredibly fast, but even faster was the announcement that Wallace's good friend Ryan Blaney had also left the sport. After the incident at Talladega, a lot of people thought that the race had ruined the friendship between Blaney and Wallace, who were close pals outside of NASCAR. Blaney was even Wallace's best man at his wedding. Honestly, it's not hard to imagine that happening. The goal of a race is to win, and Wallace's move was definitely not fair play. If Hamlin isn't on your side, you must have made a huge mistake. It seems like Wallace has stopped trying to deny the clear truth that he's responsible for all the problems he's faced this season. He should seriously think about this if he wants to keep his NASCAR driving career going. Blaney might have done what was best for the sport and their off-track friendship by trying to squash rumors of a conflict between him and Wallace. Blaney said, "But you know, we're all competitors out there, and it's not like I'm going to race Bubba any less hard than anyone else. When you're trying to beat a friend as hard as anyone else, that's when it really stinks. If it were someone you didn't care about, you might not think twice, but with a friend, you might think, man, it's such a bummer that one of us got turned." So what do you think is in store for Wallace's career? Is it time for him to retire after his controversial actions in early 2023 against a colleague? Will he accept the consequences, or will he fight back and insist he's an excellent race car driver? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please share them in the comments section below. And don't forget to check out more of our videos.